I went in the Navy in 1955. At that time we had the draft, and so a lot of companies didn't want to hire you until after your service obligation was done.
So how old were you?
I was 17 when I went in.
And you joined the Navy to see the world.
Yeah.
Then did that work out?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
It took a long time, though.
Oh, well, the world's a big place, so it does take a long time. So where did you go for training?
After I joined the Navy, I went to Bainbridge, Maryland for recruit training. And I was there for 2.5 months. And from there, I went straight aboard ship. I went aboard the USS Rich. And I was on board there for about 2 years.
What kind of a ship?
It's a destroyer. Well, they call it a destroyer escort. It was the same size as a destroyer, but we just worked with ASW for submarines.
Okay, what was ASW?
Anti-submarine warfare.
Oh, okay.
The United States was afraid of the Russians coming,
right? And
they usually kept a carrier, an ASW group, off the East Coast to protect Washington. In '56, we started as a round-the-world cruise, but to show various countries how we did ASW work and so on. But we only went to France and when we was in Rotterdam, Holland, and they started fighting over the Suez Canal in '56.
Oh, that's right, okay.
The British and the French and the Egyptians was fighting, and so that ended our round-the-world cruise, and we went down and joined the 6th Fleet in the Mediterranean. And we stayed there then until December. We stayed about 3 months in the 6th Fleet, and then we come back to Norfolk.
What did you do?
I was, at that time, I was a machinist mate. I worked down the engine room. And the ships have steam turbines and reduction gears, pumps, evaporators, where you make the fresh water. Then in 1957, I got transferred to the USS Holder. It was in a ship of the same type, same class, and it was in the same squadron. In 1958, we went down into the Red Sea and the Persian Gulf. That's when President Eisenhower landed troops in Lebanon. Mm-hmm. And so we was only supposed to be in the Red Sea and the Persian Gulf for 30 days, but it wound up we stayed down there for 62 days. Mm-hmm. And at the end of that time, we was about out of food. We didn't, no place to get any fresh provisions or anything. And by the time we left the Red Sea, we was eating mainly dried goods, beans, peas, rice, and so on. We got some beef from the Army base in Massawa, Ethiopia. What we couldn't eat before it spoiled, we used it for fishing. But as soon as we got out of the Red Sea, went back into the Mediterranean, was able to get fresh provisions. There were ships there to supply us. And then we come back to the States. I got off the Holder in 1959 and got discharged, separated, and come back to Mercer here. And then I got a job at the Malibu. I was only worked there about a month, and they laid me off. The day I got my layoff notice, I was working the afternoon shift, and next morning, after I got up, I was in Newcastle at 9 o'clock in the recruiter's office. And I went to Newport, Rhode Island, and went aboard the Charles R. Ware, regular destroyer. We went down to the Red Sea and the Persian Gulf. And I really didn't care for it there. The temperature of the seawater in the Red Sea runs anywhere from 92 to 96 degrees. Oh.
Well, how hot did it get in the engine room?
Usually, I don't remember, to tell you the truth, but it was pretty hot, I can tell you that. After we come out of the Red Sea and the Persian Gulf, come back to Newport, Rhode Island, so I got orders to go put the Farragut, the LG-6, in commission. And it was a brand new ship. It was built as a destroyer later, but before they started building it, they decided to put guided missiles on it.
Okay.
And so it was one of the Navy's first guided missile ships. We made a North Atlantic cruise, then went to the Mediterranean with the 6th Fleet and stayed down there about 2 months and come back to Mayport, Florida. And then we operated out of there until the end of '62. And at that time, we went back to the Mediterranean. We'd pulled into Naples, Italy. We was only in there about 2 days. We had to get underway. Nobody knew why. And we was underway for about 5, maybe 6 days, as near as I can recollect. And then that night, well, President Kennedy gave the speech about the Cuban Missile Crisis. And so we stayed at sea, and then after things calmed down, we'll move back in port for our repair period. And then I flew back to the States to go on shore duty at Philadelphia Naval Shipyard. You had to stay there at least a year, so I was there about 1.5 years. I went back to sea. I went to a destroyer. I went to the USS Kepler, DD 765, out of Newport, Rhode Island. I reported aboard on a Friday night. We got underway Monday morning to go to the Mediterranean. But anyway, after we come back to the States. I stayed on that ship. I was on there for 2 years, and then I got off of it, and I went to Vietnam. We went as a group. We'd gone through training together and went to Cameron Bay, and was waiting on this YRBM to come in country. It was in Japan.
Okay, what is that?
YRBM is a yard, repair, berthing, and messing.
Okay.
It's a barge. Any place we went, we had to be towed by tugs. Or usually Army tugs towed us wherever we went. And after the barge come in country, they flew everybody down from Cameron Bay to where the barge was. And I can't tell you where that was right off the top of my head. But it was at the mouth of the Mekong River anyway.
Yeah.
We stayed there, it runs in my mind, about a week. And then they towed us up to Tan Chau. It's up by the Cambodian border on the Mekong, or one of the tributaries off of the Mekong. We had 2 river sections of PBRs, and they're fiberglass patrol boats. Crews from the boats slept on the barge, they eat on the barge, and the people on the barge repaired the PBRs.
Now, there were no troops on the barge?
Just all sailors.
Okay.
Occasionally we had SEALs on board the barge,
Okay.
but the SEALs took care of their own boats and everything. They didn't want, they was their own self-contained unit. They didn't want anything except maybe some food and so on, and a place to sleep.
So basically you were in the brown water Navy.
Yes,
Yeah.
we were. And we stayed at Tan Chau for about 3 months, and we didn't see any action there. We was right close to the Cambodian border, so the VC and Charlie, they didn't bother us. They just went into Cambodia and crossed the river in Cambodia. So the Navy seen there was no action there, so they moved us from there to Canto. And Canto was going to be a operating base for PBRs, but they weren't up and operating yet, so they sent the YRBM 16 there to help get the Canto base operational. Well, after we got the base in, they got the base in operation there at Canto, which we only stayed there probably 2 to 3 months. They towed us to Bentray, And of course, we had 2 PBR sections with us. Each PBR section, I think, consisted of 10 boats each. And we was at Bentray, and we was only there 2 to 3 months. And then on Thanksgiving night in 1967, Charlie, or the VC, planted a mine underneath the barge. It caused considerable damage, a hole maybe 15 by 20 feet. And so a part of that was fuel tanks, and which we carried over 200,000 gallons of diesel. We, the crew, didn't have anything to fight the fire with because the explosion was underneath the engine room. The crew got into the 2 Mike boats. Now we had, and took what casualties. They had a dust-off come in, and they took the casualties. We took 3 people. We didn't get the fire out till it was next day, about noon, maybe later than that. So the crew, we all went over there together, went over there in January, and this was in end of November and December, and our time was almost up. So what they did, they split the crew up and went wherever they needed us in Vietnam. I was going to leave the day before Tet broke out. I went to the helo pad, and I couldn't get a helo that day to Saigon, so I went back to the hotel that night, and Tet broke out, so I didn't get out of there for another 3 or 4 days, and the bodies were really bloated up. We're still on the streets there.
Yeah.
And I came back to the States in February of '68, had 30 days leave. Then I went to AC&R school, which is air conditioning and refrigeration school in San Diego. I went there for about 3 months. I got orders to go to recruit company commander school. So I had to go push boots.
Is that what you call it?
Yeah, that's what they call it, pushing boots. Yeah. The same as a DI or drill instructor.
Yeah.
I pushed boots for, well, I was there for 2 years. I had 3 companies. I wanted to get out of there. I only spent 2 years there. It was supposed to be 3 years, but my enlistment was up.
Okay.
So I re-enlisted for orders, and I got my orders to come back to the East Coast to put the USS Luce DLG-7 back in commission. They had put it out of commission for 2 years to put a new missile systems and so on it. We put Luce in commission in May of '71, and then we went for to Gitmo for underway training. We was down there for 3 months. Coming back from Gitmo, we hit Hurricane Ginger in September '71, and I almost got washed overboard. And I wasn't over the side. I had a hold of the bottom lifeline, and the rest of my body was hanging over the side. And the next wave washed me back up on deck. And we didn't pull into the ship didn't pull into port till the next morning. And so pulled in the next morning, and I went to the hospital, and I was in the hospital until January of '72. Wow. And then they put me on limited duty. I stayed on limited duty for about 8 or 9 months, and then I finally got physically fit, and they put me back to regular duty. I got orders to the USS Kiska, and it was a brand new ship. We put ship in commission in Charleston in December '72, went through Gitmo underway training, and then went through the canal, went to the West Coast. I stayed aboard the Kiska for 3 years. And then in '75, I was over there when Saigon fell. And they stationed us up. All the refugees were coming out of Vietnam. And they were on boats. And we was out there, we give them charts, water, MREs, meals ready to eat, and fuel, whatever they needed. We didn't take any of them aboard though, but give them charts to go to either Subic or Guam. Got orders to go to Singapore. And the main reason for the Navy office being was to take care of repairs on any Navy ships that come in there, and get them fresh food and so on. And when I wasn't we didn't have any ships coming in there. The commander didn't want to see me sitting on my butt someplace, so he sent me to ship's repair facility in Subic.
Yeah.
When I come back to the States, I went to SEMA in San Diego. SEMA stands for Ship's Intermediate Maintenance Activity.
Okay.
And I was in charge of the outside machine shop. One time, most people I ever had in the shop, of course that would vary. I had, one time I had 148 sailors and 2 waves. And then I retired from there.